Welcome back to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest is the definition of grit, grace, and rising from the ashes. AJ is a paramedic from Indiana who spent the last decade saving lives while quietly carrying the weight of a past most people couldn't imagine. Emancipated at just 15, raised in a home full of addiction, abuse, and trauma, AJ didn't let her story end there. She left nursing school to chase her calling in EMS, and now, with 8 years as a medic and dreams of becoming a flight paramedic, she shows up in the chaos to bring calm, care, and compassion to others. From pediatric calls that haunt her to the organized chaos she thrives in, AJ shares what keeps her going and why helping others has become her mission. This is a raw, real, and powerful reminder your past does not define your future. Let's get into it.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 8158 Podcast Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest, we have AJ. She is a paramedic, and she has a profound story to tell our audience, and hopefully you guys will get something out of it, and hopefully it's not too over emotional for you, because some of it is kind of emotional. So with that being said, how's it going, AJ?
It's going pretty good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Just another lovely day at work and just trying to get a lot of stuff done myself.
Sounds about right.
Trying to work and then do stuff at home and then do the interviews, and we got shirts to do and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to open up with some background. How's that sound?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So you've walked a hard road to get where you are today. And can you share a bit about what drew you to EMS, even with everything you were carrying from your past?
Yeah, so I had a really rough childhood, really rough home life. I ended up getting emancipated at 15. I had to grow up super fast. A lot of the things I experienced in my childhood, when I kind of got drawn into EMS, it was about the camaraderie you have with the people around you, with the other first responders. It kind of feels like a family. And the flip side to that is also when I was going through all the things I was going through, and I felt like I didn't have anybody there to help me, just like wishing and hoping sometimes that like somebody could walk through the door, anybody to even like hug me, to even tell me it was going to be okay. And to know that like I can do that for someone, that like we are there in some of the people's darkest moments in their life. And if I can be that for some other person when they might feel as hopeless as I felt, that's what really made me feel like it was like my place to do that.
Okay. So how did you actually find your way into that high intensity, high impact career? What was that journey? How did that look for you?
So I was actually going to nursing school. I was pursuing my BSN. I knew that I wanted to be a trauma nurse because I've always been kind of drawn to like medical stuff. It intrigued me. I started on a fire department, and they had an EMS unit, and the chief just asked me, he's like, have you ever been on an ambulance before? And I was like, no. And I was like, to be honest, I would see them flying past me all the time and never really had a second thought about it. And so he put me on the truck that day. And my very first call, we went to a 3-car accident, and it was really chaotic. A couple people were hurt, and there was like a little kid there. And I was just like standing there in that moment, like everything just kind of like slowed down, and it just kind of like hit me. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I immediately, the very next day, transferred all my credits from my BSN over and got my EMT and got my paramedic, and kind of never looked back.
It's pretty awesome. Changing your career in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
Figuring that out before you got too far along with the other one. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that costs a lot of money.
It did. And funny thing is, I was a little bit over a year from finishing my BSN, actually. I'm still planning on going back and finishing that, just because I'd like to have a second degree, and makes me a little bit more versatile in my career. So
yeah, there's nothing wrong with having more education. The more knowledge you have, the better off you are, especially in your field.
Yeah.
Something to fall back on just in case, you decide to change your mind, or, if something happens, you'll have something to fall back on.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So what was it about trauma care in particular that lit a fire in you and made you want to become a trauma nurse? I know you kind of touched on that, and now you want to be a flight medic. So what lit that flame?
I think it was like very early on. Like I said, it's a whole, like you look at it like from the outside and it looks like chaos, like utter chaos. Somebody would look at them and be like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. But like when you're in the middle of like an intense call, and like things are just kind of flowing seamlessly, all these people are working together. And like I said, like being there in like a moment where like somebody absolutely needs help, and being able to be that person, and knowing that I'm bringing the best of myself as a paramedic to help these people, it just absolutely just made me like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is where I want to be at, to be able to make a difference. And even if I can only make a difference in one person's life, then it's all worth it.
Right. I see some of your posts and you seem to enjoy what you do. I mean, you seem
Absolutely.
like time at it.
I absolutely love what I do. I stopped for a little bit because I had my daughter, and literally every time an ambulance went by, I was just like, my heart just was like, oh my gosh, because I'm like, I just wanted to get back, because I was like, I miss that so much. I just can't see myself like doing anything else, really.
Right. Moving on now, you have said yourself that you thrive in organized chaos. What is it about working in the EMS field that gives you the sense of purpose or control?
So I feel like a lot of it is because my life has been chaos a lot. So in the middle of those moments, I actually feel, it sounds weird, but I actually feel like really calm, and I feel like I can thrive there because I'm used to having to do that. Um, and like I said, it's just, it's definitely something that I'm very passionate about, and I am very hard on myself, because like sometimes you can be in the chaotic moments and you can kind of like lose your place, like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this or I'm supposed to be doing that. But and I think a lot of us are like this in EMS. Like when those moments hit, you just kind of like lock in and you're just there. It's almost like I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like you know in that moment, and like everything just like almost slows down for
Okay.
like me anyway.
So, do you think you're like overly critical of yourself because you feel like you should be a lot better at what you do, or maybe you're just worried about mistakes, or what is that?
So I feel like I am, because I have always been that way ever since I was very little. But when it comes to this, every single thing that you do matters.
Mhm.
Every single thing that you do. It could be the tiniest thing, from how you position somebody to just like how you're talking to them, like anything like that. And I want to be bringing the best of myself to every patient, because in my eyes, I am treating every patient like I would treat like one of my own family members, because that is someone's family. That is someone's heart. That's somebody's very close relative. So it's very important to me to always be doing my best.
I can see that. You know, a lot of times you find that, in that profession, that a lot of uh, medics and EMTs are overly critical of themselves, even though they're good at what they do, because they expect 100%, 110% from themselves because of what they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you're right. It's because of somebody's family, somebody's loved one. They want to do the best and the best they can to help them. And, if I was in that situation, I would probably want to do the same, be the same way.
Yeah.
Uh, can you share a call or a moment on the job where you truly felt that this is exactly where I'm meant to be?
Um, I don't know. I was thinking about this. There's been quite a few um, that I've had, but I think I would like to go, like the most recent one that definitely, I feel like just kind of refreshed that, like reinstated that, was I got called out to head-on collision. And we got there, and I usually always wait till I get there to call for flight to see what's going on. As soon as we rolled up, there was like a truck or Silverado that had been coming this way. The whole front end was smashed in, and there was like this little car. And I mean, the whole front end, I mean, it looked like the engine block was like pushed in almost. And I was like sitting there and I'm thinking, there's no way there's nobody alive in here. And I like asked dispatch, I'm like, I need flight, you know. And I went up, and there was this young girl sitting in the driver's seat, and she was completely pinned in, and she was freaking out, and rightfully so, because I was like, oh my gosh, she's alive. Um, and I like looked at her, and she looked at me, and at the time I had like a bright pink mohawk, and she looked at me and she goes, oh my gosh, she's like, you have a bright pink mohawk. And here she is, like, I mean, a mess. And I turned, I was like, yeah. And she was like asking about her mom. She's like, I want my mom, I want my mom. And you could tell she was terrified. And I just grabbed her by the hand and I turned, and I said, I'm going to take care of you. And I said, everything's going to be okay. And it was a little bit of prolonged extrication and stuff. And we got her in the truck, and flight came en route, and she was pretty banged up. She had a lot of bad injuries. And her parents ended up showing up on scene, and the fire asked her, like, is it okay to let family on? And I was like, yeah, so we were getting ready to go meet the flight crew, and mom and dad came on, and they were talking to her, and mom like comforting her. She's like, I'm terrified, and her mom and dad were talking to her. And then the parents looked at me and they're like, what's going on? And I explained everything, and they just looked at me and they're like, "Thank you for taking care of our little girl." And I was like, "Absolutely." And like we were on the way there, and I was holding her hand, and we were going to meet for a flight. And she's like, "Do you believe in God?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Will you pray for me right now?" And I said, "Absolutely." And in that moment, like holding her hand and like praying for her and like getting her to the helicopter and getting her where she needed to be, that was like the most recent thing that absolutely like just refreshed like all the things that like I always feel about doing this job. I've had a lot of calls that like haven't turned out very well. I have some that have. And in that moment, that you did everything you did and it worked, and the little side story is I accidentally left one of her shoes in our ambulance when we hot loaded her. And we had a crew later that night going to the same hospital that she got flown to transfer a patient. And so I wrote a letter and I stuck it inside of her shoe and I sent it there to try to get that to her because she was like a ballet dancer, like an instructor. Like she taught like little kids and she kept asking me the whole time. She's like, "Am I going to be able to dance again?" And I'm like, "I don't know," and I don't know. It was just like one of the most refreshing moments that I've had recently. And it just made me very happy that everybody made it out of that okay. And like when she asked me if I believed in God, and I just remembered the image of her car as I was pulling up, and I'm like, how could I not? Like, so.
Yeah, it's such an amazing thing that she came out and she was okay because
Yeah,
far too often those don't turn out very well.
not really. Not really.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I mean, even in my line of work, being a truck driver, we see a lot of bad accidents on the road, and far too often I see too many tarps over cars,
Yeah. Yep.
and it's pretty sad.
It is absolutely.
Um, so I was gonna go ahead and move on to my next question. This might be, I just like to warn the audience that this might be a little bit emotional or touching because this does pertain to children, specifically pediatrics. We know that pediatrics are a very, very tough call. So, you've done a lot of pediatric calls yourself. Those are often some of the most emotionally heavy calls. Is there a story you'd be willing to share that's stuck with you in any way?
Yeah. I had it was my first pediatric traumatic arrest um, when I was a baby paramedic. Um, there was a young boy, I believe, like out riding bikes, I think, and had hit his head like into the tree. Um, the most memorable parts of that was probably when he was getting taken into the hospital and doing chest compressions on him because he was intubated and things. And like every time you were doing a compression, there was just there was a lot. It was a lot of blood. Um, Getting him into the ER. Working him and things like that. And the thing that when I'm going through those runs, like when I'm on a call or in the hospital assisting or anything like that, I'm always fine on the run. It always hits me afterwards. And I remember the parents were going to be coming into the ER, and from my understanding, the only thing they knew was that their son had like been in a bicycle accident. So in my mind, they're probably thinking like, oh, hey, he probably has a broken arm or a broken leg, and here he had been worked and it had been called. And looking back at the room, and just the trauma bay was just, I mean, it was covered in blood. The bed that he was laying on, the sheets, everything. I mean, it was just, it looked like a massacre. And, I had a couple people be able to help me. And when we were trying to get everything cleaned up on the bed, because in my mind, you don't, as a parent, you don't want to walk in and see that. And I remember I scooped him up to let the other person lay new linens down and stuff. And when I picked him up, and his head just kind of came towards me and like laid on me for a second. And that was really hard. And then, laying him back down, getting everything ready. And then I had the person I was working with go over to the PEDS unit and they have those little clay impressions, for like little baby feet and stuff. And we took an imprint of his hand before the parents got there. And I remember the parents got there, and I was standing there walking them to the trauma room and, looking at them and having to tell them, I'm sorry, and the mom, there's just a sound. It's just like a really loud, like crying wail. Like it's just it is etched in my memory. Everybody, I'm sure at some point has experienced something like that. That's been in this in healthcare. And she kind of went down on the floor and she was crying, and the husband was standing there, and obviously he was trying to comfort her, and I was trying to explain things. And I kind of backed out for a moment to let them have a moment. And then I ended up knocking on the door, and I walked in there and I said, hey, I'm really sorry about what has happened. And I said, we made this imprint of your son's hand. And he just hugged me and he thanked you. And he said, that is the sweetest thing, he's like, that you could have done. And I remember after that walking outside at the hospital, and I didn't realize it at any time before that, but I looked down and I was covered in this kid's blood. And I was just standing there looking down at my uniform, and I was like, wow. And I broke down. And I ended up calling and talking to my son. My son at the time was the same age as this boy, same eye color, same hair color, almost the same haircut. And when I went home and my son was in bed, and I went in there and I just held him so tight and I just cried, because in that moment I almost felt guilty, because I'm like, how I get to come home to my little boy. And that mom and that dad doesn't. And for a while I felt like that. And I will never forget any of those moments dealing with that. And I still sometimes to this day I think about those parents, and I cannot imagine going through what they did. And I just wish that there could have been something that could have been done. But everybody did absolutely everything. It just didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to.
It's pretty sad. Yeah, that's a tough one. Having to deal with a lot of pediatric trials that you deal with on a regular basis. How is it that you cope, or what do you do to decompress from that?
It's probably different with each one, to be honest. Like I said, most of my bad pediatric runs were, I had a few when I was on clinical. I had several when I was very early on in my paramedic career. I think there's things that happen with each one that are just kind of seared into your brain, and a lot of it just takes time. I know early on I had quite a few back to back, and I kind of started to lose myself there for a little bit. I, leaned on alcohol at times because there's things that you just don't, it just kind of happens. You'll be out shopping or doing something with your kids, and then something will pop in your brain from like when you were on a call. It could be like, I was picking out socks for somebody one time because they were having a baby shower, and I grabbed a pair of socks, not thinking about it, just like sat down with it, and I was like, and there was a pair of socks, and it almost looked identical to a sock that was on this little girl that I had as a cardiac arrest not too long before that. And it just kind of slaps you, and it takes you back to that moment, and you kind of have to, know that you did everything that you could have, know that nothing was going to change the outcome of that, and definitely having like a strong group of people around you, having somebody that that you can lean on and you can talk to, because sometimes just being able to like vocalize like, I thought about this run today, and then I know myself and I know other people, I'll be like, I did X, Y, Z. What could I have done better? Why didn't this work? And which also links up with that being self-critical, because when something similar like that happens the next time, even if we couldn't have done anything better, like we want to do better the next time. And I was in a very, very, very dark place. But thankfully, my now husband, he was also a paramedic at the same time I was, and he had a lot of the similar things happen to him too early on as a paramedic. And we were able to kind of like lean on each other and be able to talk through things and be able to get to a better place through all of that. And still to this day, because he's not a paramedic anymore, but still to this day, I have, if I have really bad runs and stuff like that, he's the first person I call. And I'm like, I'll be bawling and I'll be like, this happened, and he like talks me through everything, and he'll be like, remember when we did this and remember that, and he'd be like, but you did everything that you could. There's nothing else you could have done. And I think going through things like that, I think as a new paramedic or a new EMT, like being able to know that you can talk about it is a big thing, because when we were first put on trucks and things of that nature, when we were going through these things, sometimes it was like viewed as like a rite of passage almost. It was almost like, if you can't deal with these runs, then you don't belong here. And I don't think that should be like how people perceive that. Like, do we need to be able to go and perform our job 1,000%? We need to be able to do that run. What happens afterwards, I think you should absolutely feel okay to be like, hey, I'm not okay after that, and not be viewed as like weak or like you don't belong in EMS, in 911, in healthcare, because you 1,000% do. We have some young EMTs that I currently work with that have been with me on some really, really bad traumatic calls very early on in their careers. And it really affected them. But the good thing is that, we were able to be like, hey, like, talk about it. Like, if you're not okay, talk about it, because of how everything was with us. Like, when we were first out as medics. And I think that, like, I heard from someone, like the one time it was someone that has been doing this for like over 20 years. And he's just like, well, this is how we've always done it.
We will return after this quick ad break.
The William H. Bill Butler Jr. Foundation is on a mission to honor first responders and support those who serve. We provide scholarships for families who have lost a hero in the line of duty, offer second chances to juvenile offenders who are working to rebuild their future, and help new recruits pursuing careers as first responders. Through generous donations and the sale of merchandise, we're building a community that uplifts, empowers, and creates lasting impact. You can be a part of this mission as well. Visit 8158podcast.com to donate or shop today. Together, we can support those who serve, honor those we've lost, and give hope to those who need it most. Behind every badge is a story, and behind every story is a sacrifice. This is the 8158 podcast, where we honor the lives and legacies of first responders and their families. If our mission speaks to your heart, if these stories move you like they move us, join us on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you'll get ad-free listening, exclusive merchandise, behind-the-scenes content, and video episodes only available to our patrons. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you can be a part of it. Support us at patreon.com/8158podcast. Let's continue to share the stories that deserve to be heard.
And I just think that that's not really a great mentality. I think that this job is very rewarding. I think that's very hard, and it can be very traumatic. And I think that people don't realize a lot of the things that we take home with us. And I think that the most important thing I can say to people is that, like, you need to talk about it. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you can't do this job, because people like that are amazing at this job because they care about their patients.
Yeah, it's definitely important to have an emotional and mental stable paramedic in the line of work. And if you're not allowing yourself to let a lot of those compounding traumas get out, or if you don't have a support network like you have your husband, you guys know the job, you guys are familiar with each other and are okay talking with each other. So you're able to get that out, um, which is fantastic. So that makes you that much better at what you do because it makes you healthier
Yeah,
instead of holding it in and then allowing that to be self-destructive because
absolutely.
it could be detrimental to your patient and anybody around you.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, and that's pretty awesome. I'm glad you have that support, and it's kind of a rare thing, but you're very blessed to have
I
that.
am.
It's pretty awesome. Um, yeah, I mean, especially when you're dealing with pediatrics. I mean, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, it is. It is. And there's some that you go on that it's like, it's very difficult because, sometimes, like the parents are there, like right there, and you're trying to do everything that you need to do. And obviously they're distraught. And you have like, you'll have the police department, you have the fire department, you have the one time, well, it's happened more than once, but definitely one time I was, working a pediatric arrest and I had the mom was right behind me and she was kind of like, not really, she wasn't like hitting me, but she was kind of like, smacking me on my back and she was like telling me, like, say it, like, save, save my baby,
Yeah,
And it's hard in those moments because you're like looking up and you're looking around and you're like, this is all on me right now. Like this is, but that's what we're there to do in those moments. And, and sometimes you'll have the adverse things, go on and it's really hard. And sometimes, you can't help but take those things home with you. But the biggest thing is just, like I said, just leaning on the people around you, and just like it's the best thing you can do, really. And I
yeah,
do enjoy that about where I work at now, um, because everybody is so like hey, are you okay? Like, do you need to talk? And we're really there for each other. And anybody knows that they can come talk to me. I know that I can go talk to anybody. And I think that really makes our work environment like super awesome. Because even if I wasn't on that run with that person, or especially if we were on a run together like that, it's just nice to be able to have that open communication. So that way, we can kind of all work through it together. And doing the debriefings afterward, the most recent one I had, we ended up going back and doing a debriefing with the fire crew that was with us and everything. And it was just nice and open, and everybody was able to talk about everything. And I think that it not only made everybody feel better, but I think it kind of made us closer in a sense, like when we're all on scene together, knowing that, like, we can be there for each other.
right. Now, do you think that's what keeps you going on days when trauma gets too heavy, or what does keep you going?
I think what keeps me going is knowing that I belong there, knowing that I need to um, be able to push past that, not necessarily like push myself through it, but know that I can get through it, know that, the next person who might need our help is just a phone call away, literally, and that I need to be able to be where I need to be at, like mentally, to be able to run that call how I need to. And my family, needs me, and being able to show them that, like, yes, like, this job is hard, but being able to keep myself mentally strong so that way I can, like I said, go on the next run and the run after that and the run after that. Because if I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm not good for the next patient that I take care of.
Absolutely. Self-care is priority. That's number one. Um, so you've experienced so much loss in your life, one including a family member who was killed in the line of duty. How does that impact the way that you show up for your patients and also for your crew?
So yes, my uncle was a police officer. He was killed in the line of duty. That completely reshaped our entire family. And all I know is that, like, when I was growing up, my family was very focused on, like, respecting, like, first responders and, like, things like that. And then actually working with these people, like working alongside, like, fire and PD. We're like a big family, sometimes a little bit dysfunctional, but we're family nonetheless. And it doesn't matter, if something were to happen and, one of them needed me, like, I would be there for them, because, to me, we're all supposed to be there for each other, and we're all connected because we're all there for the same purpose. And the thing about that keeps me going is that I take pride. I take pride when I put on my uniform, and I feel like when I have my uniform on, I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm out there, helping people. And I want them to know that, like, when they see me, they're like, oh, I've actually ran into some of the people I've treated before, and they're like, oh my gosh, they're like, there you are, like, AJ. And I'm like, hey. And it just makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I am where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's exactly where you need to be right now. And you're definitely helping a lot of people, and you're having a lot of impact on people's lives, especially with the pink mohawk,
Yeah.
which I love, by the way. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Uh, have you found any healing in helping others, especially kids or victims of abuse, through your role in EMS or as a paramedic?
Yeah. 1,000%. Like I said, I didn't have the greatest childhood. I went through a lot of things. There was a lot of abuse and things like that in my life. And I've had patients that, I have talked to them, and I've had some people ask me, they're like, why do you even waste your time? Like having a conversation with them like that. And I'm like, they're like, they're probably not even going to listen to you. And I said, but if they do, if that one conversation I can have with somebody to let them know, like, hey, someone does care. Like, they don't know me, and they're probably never going to see me again. But I mean, I've had kids that, I went on that, are going through things. I've had women that are, being battered. I've had, young women that have been sexually assaulted and things like that. And I know that I can talk to them and I can say, like, hey, I've been where you are because I was at some point. And because a lot of people will be like, no, you don't. No, you don't understand. But they think they can, I have conversations with them and they know that I understand. And it makes me feel like I can connect with these people. And like I said, if it's only one person, if it's 3 people, if it's 300 people that listen to me, my little conversation I have on the way to the hospital, and I can help them, then that it means everything to me, because I wish I would have had somebody that would have taken 2 minutes, 5 minutes, to just be like, hey, you're not alone and everything is going to be okay. So I think that it's a big deal to me.
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely relate to a lot of the people, I imagine, because of your past and your background and uh, what you've gone through. So it's, I mean, it seems not like it's not fair for them to say that, but yet, I mean, you can obviously get through to them.
Mm-hmm. 1,000%. And I'll always try to.
That's pretty awesome. Uh, so now, you were raised by your grandparents and essentially had to raise yourself. What values did you learn in that survival mode that you carry into your career today?
Um, I think, I don't know. I was thinking about that, and that's tough. It made me very self-reliant, and at first, it kind of made it hard getting into this field because I was very closed off and guarded. But I was able to find the opposite side of that, and I think it has made me a better person. I think I used to think, I'm like, why did all these bad things happen to me? And like, now I understand. Now I understand more, because I feel like it makes me a better provider. And I've definitely had a lot of growth since being in EMS. And I think finally finding the family that, like, I didn't have, I guess, before.
Right. So you found that family in the EMS world,
Yes. Yeah.
that camaraderie and, that love and respect for each other.
Yes, absolutely.
It's pretty awesome. Uh, so what kind of message do you hope your kids see in watching the life that you have built, despite where you came from?
I hope that they see, strength, resilience. I think that I've had to stop a lot of generational trauma, which is not easy. It is actually really hard. But to know that you can do anything and you can be anything. Because I know growing up, I would drive past a college, and in my mind, I'm like, I'll never be there. And like going to college, getting my paramedic, getting my associates for that, and everything I do for them. And I hope that they see that, and I hope that they see that, uh, being able to help other people, like, is always very important to me. And I hope that they I hope that they can understand that, and I hope that they can relate to that. Which my kids mostly do. They're very loving and caring, to people. And I just hope that they see that all things are possible, because I was just a kid, that grew up in the middle of a cornfield, and never thought I was going to go anywhere. And, now here I am.
Right. So how old are your kids now? I mean,
I have a son that's 18. I have a daughter that's 17. And my youngest is a little girl and she's 5.
oh, sweet. Huge age gap.
Yes. Yes. Although she
Yeah,
tries to act like a teenager too. So,
that they do. Them little ones, they try to act like they are adults.
yes.
Uh, now, if you could go back and speak to your 15-year-old self,
I think I would tell her that it's going to be okay.
mm,
I think I would tell her that it's going to be okay. Because for the longest time it wasn't. Um, so I think that's what I would tell her. I would tell her that it was going to be okay. And I would tell her that, you've already been through a lot and you're going to go through some even harder things, but it's going to help other people someday. And I think that's what I would tell her.
I think through your actions, you've already told her that. And I just would like to say that I commend you, and uh, I'm proud of you for breaking that generational trauma and overcoming a lot of the childhood traumas that you've gone through. I myself have gone through a lot of childhood traumas that I'm dealing with, and it is not an easy thing. So I totally understand. It is hard, but to do it and to struggle through it and to make it, it's tough. So believe me
It's,
when I say I understand.
yeah, it sucks sometimes.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And but there is the silver lining that it made you who you were. It made you strong.
Yes,
It gave you purpose, and it sucks that you have to go through that to find that, but it gave you the will to be a survivor and to do what you do today, and
absolutely.
you impact a lot of lives.
I hope so.
But I'm very glad that you came through out the other side, um, on the right end of the
Thank
spectrum,
you.
as opposed to just continuing down the dark path.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That is amazing, and and also for our audiences, that's a lesson that a lot of us don't. You may not see it at the time, like I didn't. I didn't see it at the time, and also AJ obviously didn't see it at the time. But there is a silver lining, and you have a choice to make. You could either follow the dark path, or you could either make a choice to steer yourself away from that and make your life a better choice. What do you do with that is going to be the outcome in your life.
Absolutely.
And I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Um, so now you have accomplished a lot already. What's next? Uh, what are your goals as you move towards becoming a flight medic?
So like I said, right now I just got a new job and I'm starting there. I'm gonna be finishing my nursing. Right now I'm just trying to um learn more of the in hospital stuff a little bit more. I want to be able to combine all my out of hospital experience with some in hospital experience. And I feel like that way I can be an even better provider for my patients. Being flight is really exciting for me. Knowing that's something that's probably going to happen in the near future, I'm pretty excited about. Right now, I'm just focusing on getting different certifications and things like that, and just trying to be at the top of my game right now, and just focusing, kind of slowing down just a little bit and focusing on all that, like getting some extra education and all of that is really what I'm focused on at the moment. But definitely flights in the near future, and I'm excited.
I'm definitely excited for you, and I really hope you get it and you make that happen. That's definitely awesome. You know, I always like flying. I want to learn how to fly a helicopter myself.
Yeah,
One of these days.
absolutely. Right.
Um, so, if someone listening is walking a similar road that you had in your past or is feeling stuck in their generational trauma, it felt like they're not cut out for that life, what would you want them to hear from you in your story?
I think I would want them to know that um, somebody is there. It's okay to reach out and not think, because a lot of time I felt like, this is stupid. I need to be able to handle this myself. And um, knowing that, like you said, like when you're going through bad times like that, you have a choice that you have to make. And a lot of times the easiest choice is not the best choice.
Mhm.
Sometimes you really have to work and you're beat down and it just kind of feels like life's kicking you and you're like, I'm already down. Like, why is this happening? But to know, like, you have to pick yourself back up, and at some point, you're going to move past it. You're going to be able to look back at it and, be on the better side of it. And at some point you could be able to touch someone's life and make a difference. You could be able to relate to somebody that nobody else will be able to relate to because of something that you had to go through. It doesn't make it easy at all. It is really hard. But the only thing I can say is just, like, keep going, pick yourself up. At some point, I know it doesn't feel like it. And I promise you, because I've been there, it feels like you're never going to be past it, but you will be. And being able to heal from that is just, it's a really good feeling. I mean, some of those things stay with you, but um, it makes you such a stronger person. Um, so that's what I would definitely hear from my story, or if they can relate to any part of it, like, just keep going. It's going to get better. I promise.
Absolutely. And you're not only hearing that from AJ, you are hearing that from myself. She obviously had her trials and tribulations. She had to walk down a path and she made her choice and she came out the side on the better end. Myself included, I made some decisions, made some bad decisions, and yet I was able to change it and turn around and make better decisions and come out on the other side in a better situation. Uh, so, for any of you who are listening, who are struggling and feel like you're alone and like you cannot uh, overcome these traumas, just know that you're not alone. There are people like you. There are two people like you that are sitting right here, right now. We've gone through it. It is not easy. It is a struggle. We know it's hard. You just got to find that inner strength to make your decision and overcome the obstacles that are thrown your way in life. Um, obviously, you did it. I did it.
Absolutely.
So which is pretty awesome.
It is awesome.
I just wanted to say to you that my condolences for your loss. In that aspect, we can relate as well. Uh, this is the reason why we started this podcast, because we lost my cousin in the line of duty as well. Um, he was a 20-year veteran, and he did 3 tours overseas. He was in Iraq. He was a part of Iraqi Freedom. He retired from the guards, and he worked for the uh, sheriff's department for 12 years, and then uh, went full time in the guards to be a recruiter. Well, he retired and went back to being a deputy. And his year and a half back at being a deputy, he was killed during this traffic stop. Uh, he was shot, and this is why we do the podcast, and we want to, help other first responders, because we know he loves not just his fellow officers. He loves first responders. He loves EMS and fire, because that's the kind of man he was. He was a very kind, loving person. Uh, and like I always tell people, we initially started the podcast just to shine light on what he did and who he was, and that, you guys and gals are all people, and you have families that love and care about you. And, just wanted to shine a light on that. But
Absolutely.
we quickly realized that through the process that there was a lot more to it. There was a lot of traumas and PTSD or PTSI or whatever, some of the guests called it. Um, it was alarming. And then hearing about, some of our officers and firefighters and our paramedics and EMS, committing suicide because of
Mhm.
compounding traumas and not having an outlet. It was so alarming and heartbreaking to hear that. And so we changed our focus on that. And that's what Bill would want. Billy would want us to
Absolutely.
change our focus to look out for you guys and to help you guys out, to give you guys a voice, and, just to kind of give you guys a platform to kind of just let all that stuff out there, and let the world know that you're human, and you guys go through the same things that everybody else goes through, except you guys go through it on unfold, because you see a
Yeah.
lot more traumas than we do.
Yes. Yes, we do. And I think that it's really amazing. And I just want to say thank you for having me on here. I'm really honored, and I'm really sorry for your loss. But definitely this is an amazing thing that you're doing. And I think it's gonna help a lot of people, and I'm sure it already has. So I just want to say thank you, because this is a really different opportunity for me, because I don't talk a lot about things going on with myself, but I think that this is pretty amazing, everything that you guys are doing.
We definitely appreciate that. We realize sometimes just having a conversation helps, instead of, going to a counselor and having them look down at their nose at you, trying to diagnose what's going on.
Yes,
It's sometimes it's just better to have a conversation with somebody, a friend or a coworker, or even just a perfect stranger. I mean, even something like this, I mean, it takes a lot of weight off, and we seem to get a lot of that same feedback that it's helped a lot of our law enforcement and EMS firefighters and our military members kind of get a lot of that weight that they've been carrying and let it out.
absolutely.
It's pretty awesome.
It is.
Yeah, but I I looked at your post. You seem like a really fun, crazy, wild person. Especially with that big mohawk. That was
Absolutely.
pretty
Yep.
awesome. And I definitely appreciate you coming on and taking the time to out of your busy schedule. I know you're moving and all that good stuff and changing jobs, and uh, a lot of love and respect to you and your family. And I just want to thank you again, and God bless you. And please stay safe out there, and
Absolutely.
keep doing what you're doing. And hopefully one day we'll have you back on here as a flight medic.
Absolutely. I would look forward to that. Absolutely.
That would be fun to hear. I want to hear some stories about that.
Oh, yes. I'm sure I'll have quite a few. I, I seem to be a black cloud, so, that's how it
Oh,
works.
hopefully it's not too black because we don't want nothing
No.
bad to
Yeah,
happen.
no.
But anyways, that is all I have for you today. But we would like to have you back on here in the near future so we can hear about what's going on with you and your successes.
Absolutely. I would love to do that.
That would be awesome. We would definitely appreciate that. So, with that being said, I'll let you get back to your busy life and finishing up what you're doing. And God bless you and have a pleasant evening.
All right. Thanks. You too.
You as well. Night.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.